Assisted living troubles in the news. Hello, YouTube family. This is ALFATIR CRAWFORD with Finance Up. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for the continued support. This series of videos that I'm doing called Assisted Living Troubles is to share with you guys the realities of owning an assisted living business. So these clips are specifically for you to learn some of the pain points of owning an assisted living business. Enjoy the clip. Again, thanks for the continued support. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And let's go.
Impact news. We have an update on a WCNC Charlotte investigation from our Nate Morabito. I'm going to read a little bit about this, but then I'm going to send it right over to him because he is the expert. So in the aftermath of this investigation, the state of North Carolina has fined a Gaston County assisted living facility for neglecting a resident and violating her rights. Now the family is pursuing more legal action. So Nate, tell us about this first initial investigation and where we are now.
Yeah, okay. So if you have a loved one that's in an assisted living facility in North Carolina, they have certain rights. And one of those rights is that if you're going to kick them out, for example, you don't feel like you can take care of them anymore, you need to follow a specific procedure, which includes paperwork and guaranteeing a right for those people to appeal. Well, in this case, we started covering it earlier this year. Somerset Court of Cherville, a Gaston County assisted living facility, we raised several different questions about care at that place, including talking to a woman named Frida Reynolds. And in Frida's case, she had a medical condition that back in January forced her to go to the hospital. She was living at this facility for quite some time. She was the resident council president. She was outspoken. She had filed formal complaints with regulators about this facility. She goes to the hospital. She gets taken care of at the hospital. And when it's time to go back to the assisted living facility, Somerset Court says, no, we're not going to take you back. And so what effectively happened here is that this woman who turned 73 on Monday spent 53 days in the hospital without a home. She had all of these friends that she made over time at this facility. She told me back in, I believe it was March, that one of them passed away while she was stuck at the hospital. She was heartbroken over that. And while she was waiting to find a new place to live, this facility failed to follow the rules and give her the paperwork, but most notably failed to give her the chance to appeal the decision. So she had no say whatsoever for her circumstance. And we initially reported this. The state opened an investigation, and the state, in the spring, I feel like it was in April, determined this was a case of serious neglect because they violated her rights, and she unnecessarily stayed in the hospital for much longer than she needed to. I mean, imagine making the hospital your temporary home. Like,
For almost 2 months.
yeah, I mean, you don't want to spend one day there, let alone essentially 2 months there. So through that process, we knew there was a potential of a fine. And just this week, I learned that the state has now fined the facility. It doesn't sound like much, $3,500. The family says it's not that much, but they believe it's a first step in securing accountability, and they don't think it's going to be the last step of this process. But here's where it really kind of rubs them the wrong way. The facility is appealing the $3,500 fine. So the same facility that refused to give a resident the right to appeal is now exercising its right to appeal this $3,500 fine. And we spoke with Frida's daughter, Carrie, earlier this week. I think, Jeb, we have it ready to go if you want to listen to that just real quick, because I think she has a really unique perspective here.
The end goal is for Somerset and the parent company to realize that it is not okay what they did and how they went about doing it, because there is a proper protocol for discharging someone. There's a proper protocol for a bail system, and responses like, well, I just didn't know, I didn't know I was supposed to send a letter to discharge someone, is crazy to me. And they need to understand that these are people's loved ones that you're dealing with. And I take it lightly that my mom is somewhere. We are putting her there to give her the best care that we can give her when her family works and is unable to do the day-to-day items. We just want her to be taken care of. And so it's not okay the way that our loved ones are being treated.
So Frida is now in a new facility in Shelby. She's been there for several months now. She was able to get to a family reunion last weekend, but she doesn't get to get out very much. And her daughter told me her quality of life has really suffered since all of this began. And because of the need, they say, for accountability in this case, they have hired an attorney. They've sent a demand letter to Somerset Court of Charitable and its parent company asking for compensation for the way Frida was treated. So it's one of those things where we run a story or we publish a story. This was months ago when we first started investigating this place. The first stories we ran, not even involving Frida, that was back in January, February. Anyways, we're always monitoring. We're always checking state websites. I'm always staying in contact with family members of investigations that we've got to know people of for any kind of updates, because I think it's unfair to report on something and then to move on to the next thing, right? We need to see this all the way through. And the biggest development isn't really this fine. It's that the family is now pursuing legal action.
And that's not something, just so I'm clear, that they were intending to do in the first place. They were...
I mean, she told me the other day, Carrie told me, in hindsight, maybe she should have pursued it sooner. But yes, I mean, they wanted to see this process play out the way it's supposed to, which is you report concerns to the state comes in, they do their investigation, but it rises to a level they feel like that they've put their mom in such a terrible position for her mental and emotional state, and the family, the entire family, it was very difficult for them, that they feel like to properly hold this facility accountable, they feel like they have to pursue this legal action. And we were there the day they had to move all of her stuff out of Somerset Court of Charitable. Mom was still in the hospital. The family came in, loaded a U-Haul with all of her belongings. She never even got to say goodbye to the people that she lived with for so long. In Somerset Court, it said, we just can't take care of her anymore. The family has believed really from the start that this was retaliatory, that this was a woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind and advocate for herself, and they believe she was punished because of it.
I think you really hit that point home earlier when you mentioned one of her close friends passed away while she was in the hospital. Like, this isn't just care. This is where you build a community when you live there for so long. And so that's not just, that's just some pretty intense emotional trauma to deal with.
Yeah, and I will also say this is the same facility that the state regulators found, prompted by our reporting, that the call bell system was down for an entire week in January. We, in our reporting before that state investigation, found that there were call bell issues around the time that a resident there choked and then died. I still stay in touch with that woman's daughter because I don't think that this situation is done on their side of things. They still have a lot of questions. We also reported on a hospice patient at the same facility who there was a note from a physician, apparently a nurse practitioner, that required, because he was a fall risk, that he had to sleep on a mattress on the ground. We had a picture of that, and it was pretty hard to kind of see somebody. Where's the dignity in that is the question that kind of was asked. And where's the dignity for Frida? I mean, this is a woman who's in her 70s, who has found a home that she loves, who is not afraid to give constructive criticism when things don't go the way that they should there, and who's now basically said, you're not welcome back.
This facility, now that you've done multiple stories on this, multiple people upset about treatment, have they said anything concrete to you?
Not to me. They've not said, every time we do a story, we reach out. They've not answered our questions. They've not responded to our inquiries. We do know that they increased training as a result of this particular state investigation, but I've not received any response to any of the questions. And we've really been working at this for a long time, trying to be fair, trying to understand that all perspectives matter in this kind of reporting because it's sensitive. But all we have is what they've told the state, which is that they've increased training as a result.
You know, another part of this appeal, not that they're appealing back to the state, is that this is just going to continue on for a long time too. So I think that's another piece of this. These legal matters are not resolved easily, especially when they involve the state. And so can I imagine that's another piece of this very difficult puzzle for them.
And we were visiting with Carrie, Frida's daughter, the other day, and she goes, at some point you kind of try to set it aside.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of try to move forward with life, but you really can't fully move past that because that still lingers. Right? There are still other issues they're dealing with when it comes to this care. They don't want it to happen to anyone else. And they feel like the only way to do that is to really send a clear message that we're not going to take this. We're going to fight back. A $3,500 fine, they believe they should have to pay. They know they have the right to appeal it, but they hope that accountability and their fight for justice doesn't end there, which could take more time.
Yeah. How is Frida doing in her new facility?
Well, I mean, she's going through physical therapy. She's making the best out of every day, but she still struggles mentally. Her daughter told me, I mean, it's very tough for her. She has a roommate there, and this isn't like her old place. You know, this is an adjustment for her. She doesn't really have some of the privacy maybe that she might want, but this is the situation that she's in. This is the facility that accepted her based on her health condition, and it's not really close. You know, family lives down here, South Charlotte, and she's out in Shelby. And so, you know, her family doesn't get to see her as much as they'd like to, but they have to trust that this new facility is taking care of her to the best of their ability. That's what they thought Somerset Court was doing of charitable. And they later learned that they feel like the way that this ended didn't have to be that way. And they really felt like it was punishment for her.
I know this piece airs at 11 tonight. Anything else people need to know beforehand?
I would urge people right now to go to WCNC.com. The web story is already up. There's a link to the penalty. There's a link to some of the state findings. There's a link to our prior reporting, which is really in depth. We talked to a former employee. That's what really started all this. An interview with a former employee who laid out a lot of concerns. And I think you'll see that what happens with any kind of investigation is you put it out there, and more people start reaching out, and their concerns aren't always the same. You know, what happened with Frida is much different than what happened to another resident or another resident. We interviewed another resident early on that had concerns about the call bell system, and that when people wouldn't come when they needed help, when they actually needed, you know, workers weren't coming. So it's a variety of issues, and we know that the state is watching, which is a big deal.
Sure.
And I think that's something. And the fact that, you know, Somerset Court of Charitable did a corrective action to try to address that. Great as well. That is in a better situation today than maybe we were at the beginning of the year. I just don't think that this is anywhere close to being over yet.